So today on the Chrysler project, the big Chrysler New Yorker, I'm going to have a go at restoring the seriously cracked and degraded steering wheel. Bit of a side quest project. I've never restored a steering wheel before. Good old YouTube has given me a few pointers. I didn't film taking the steering wheel off because there was quite a lot of profanity and bad words going on, but I managed to get it off without causing any more damage. For those of you wondering how on earth you get these off, this centerpiece, you turn it to the left and this centerpiece pops off, and then you can undo these 3 screws on the centerpiece. That pops off the center, and then you can undo the actual horn ring that comes off, and then undo the big nut on the steering shaft. And down in here there is 2 threaded holes, one there and one there, and you use a steering wheel puller to pop the steering wheel off. So I'll head inside, and the first job will be to see if I can clean up the horn ring a bit. Then I'll pop to the hardware store and buy some supplies and start tackling the restoration on the steering wheel. Just spent the last half an hour scrubbing the steering wheel, getting all the mank off and black mould that was sort of growing all over it, just to try and clean it up, something to start with. And we'll let it sit out here to dry, and then on to the next phase. This is the horn ring, all cleaned up. I just pulled it apart and gave it a good scrubbing with some Quad Zero soapy pad steel wool. Still wants a little bit of a polish up, but it's come up pretty clean. As with all the pop metal stuff on the car, it does have a little bit of blistering. There's not much you can do about that, but pretty happy with how it cleaned up. So I've started on the steering wheel repair. I've used JB Weld and just mixed up a couple of lots and basically just plastered it on there, tried to fill the cracks as best as possible. It's likely going to need a couple of coats and sanding in between, and I just ran over it with the matte gas torch there. I've seen a few guys doing epoxy tabletops do that to get the epoxy to sink into the cracks, and it seemed to work pretty well. Just a very light heat run over it. May lose a little bit of the detail in the steering wheel, but it's going to be a lot better than having major cracks all through it. So once all the cracks are filled, I'm going to get an epoxy resin kit with some dye, and then I'll coat the whole steering wheel in that, and hopefully it levels off nicely. We'll see how it goes. It's a bit of an experiment. Can't make it any worse than what it was. I've still been working away at the steering wheel. Pretty well got the whole top section, the middle section and the base done now. As far as he's doing with the epoxy, as you can see, spent a lot of time hand sanding it all. All the cracks are nicely filled in. The hand grip sections on the side, I masked around each crack. So if you remember earlier, I'd sort of put a real thin layer of epoxy in to fill all the cracks and soak in there and really attach it back to the metal. and I've just masked around each crack now and on the ends, and refilled it with more epoxy where there were gaps, and then tape back over the whole thing so that the epoxy sits flat in the cracks. And when you peel it all off, you don't have too much clean up work to do. We'll wait for that to set, come back and have another look at it. Well, it is the next day. I pulled the tape off this side, cleaned it up with a razor blade. Just a couple little chip pieces out of it while I was cleaning it up. I sort of think it might be ready for a coat of epoxy primer. Now I can spot fill any other little imperfections in it. I'll pull the tape off this side, see what this one looks like cleaned up. This has just got the first layer of tape off, so you can see how it all sort of spreads out. You're really got to make sure you get that first layer of masking tape wrapped pretty tight so that the epoxy doesn't bleed out underneath the tape. And it breaks off, leaves a nice clean edge. Done a little bit more work to the steering wheel. Pretty well got it ready for a coat of primer. I'm going to use a 2-part epoxy primer on it. Pretty much all the cracks have been repaired. It will need a little bit of fine tuning, so a coat of primer, sanding back again, a little bit more fine tuning with a bit more filler just to smooth out any rough spots, any pinholes. I'm just getting there. I've had a little bit of a dig through the cupboards, managed to find this stuff. It's a high solid 2-pack primer. It smells pretty toxic, so it's probably pretty good. I think I've used it, or I have used it before, but it's pretty old. She's gone pretty thick. I'll mix some up. Just found this water bottle that I've cut in half. It uses a mixing cup. I'll go to the paint shop just to get a mixing cup to do this. And I'm just going to paint it on with a paintbrush. And the steering wheel's all masked up. Ready to put a coat of primer on it. We'll see what happens. It's got a couple of coats of paint on it. Or high fill primer, I should say, not paint. Use the brush instead of spraying it because you can sort of keep layering it on there until it starts to set off. It's really good for sort of laying it into all the imperfections. It's still going to need a little bit of work. Obviously sand it back. There'll still be some low spots and some little bits like in the grips there. They still need a little bit more work. But it sort of sets it as a solid base, ready to do the fine. The fine tuning on it. Damn sticky stuff. I managed to spill it everywhere. There goes a pair of jeans. So I'm just working on reinstating the ribs in the hand grips on the steering wheel. So this side I haven't touched yet. But it's been pretty slow going and painstaking. But I've just been using a triangle file, small triangle file, and then chasing the ribs and cleaning them out. Of course, there's a lot of repair done, particularly on this side. It's pretty slow going. It's definitely not an easy task. There's still a few little spots there that will need a little bit of fine fill before a final coat of primer goes on. But it's slowly getting there. I'll flip it over and show you the other side and how I'm tackling this job. This is the bottom side. Still working on this. Chase it all the way around to this side. Essentially get a triangle file like this, find the groove, you've just got to slowly keep chasing them around. Okay, it's got this side pretty well done. Basically just got to recarve all those little rib sections in. This side, as I said, was quite bad. Essentially there was big sections missing, so I've just had to try and recreate it as best as possible. And I'm hoping once the primer goes on and the paint that it will flow in and create the ribs like they were originally. Get to work on the other side now. It's a slow process. Well, that's got that side all finished up. It's a pretty slow process. If you don't have patience, I don't recommend doing something like this. There were certainly some quite big sections that were completely missing out of this side. So I've had to recreate it and basically carve out and try and replicate how it was originally. I get to work on this side now. Should be a lot easier. There's a lot more of this side that was left existing, and we'll get it looking like this side and be ready for some primer. Okay, that's got both side hand grips all filed up now. A lot of work in doing that, but all the ribs are back in there, both sides. A little bit hard to sort of see the detail on the camera, but some focus issues there. Doesn't want to focus, there we go. So all that's left now to do is finish sanding a little bit just in around the centre areas. Back side of here, I have sanded this, it's all nice and smooth. And it'll be ready for probably a final coat of primer. A little bit of fine fill, a couple of the little pit marks, any little sort of marks around it. Sand that back, and a final coat of primer, and then paint. I'm not quite sure whether I'll do that or not. I'll probably get it to this stage and put it back on the car. I have decided that I am going to sell the car, so if somebody decides that they want to paint the dash and everything a different colour, I want to paint the steering wheel to match. So all in all, it's all come up pretty well considering how badly cracked it was and damaged. It was almost beyond repair, but there's a hell of a lot of hours in repairing it, but it just proves that it can be done. I'd imagine if you send it to somebody to restore, it would be thousands of dollars. So over the space of a couple of months, just spending an hour on it here and there, doing little spot repairs, bit of sanding, it's come up, I'd say 90% restored. Not perfect, but pretty damn good. Just working on getting the fuel tank cleaned up for the New Yorker now. So when I pulled it out, I snapped the straps off it, or the bolts on the straps. So I'm about to go and have a tackle at repairing them. And I'll need to get some samples of these hoses, taken into the hydraulic shop probably. Be the best place in town to get some. Go and have a look at these straps and see what I've brewed up there. So I spent far too long scrounging around in my scrap bolt and nut collection, and I've come up with this recipe. So I've got 2 wheel studs here and some wheel nuts. These are the original bolts that went in there. So this section in here is threaded, and this sat with the nut on the top of the boot side, which I'll show you soon. I've ground up the back of the wheel studs on the grinder and cleaned up the face of what's remaining of the stud on the strap. We'll weld these two together. You'll see the length of this from where it snapped off here to where it needs to come up into the boot and sit flush. I'm going to leave a little bit of extra length thread because there's not much thread in there, and that was sitting at the boot floor face. Make it a little bit easier to get the straps back in there. You want a little bit more thread. But hopefully this works. I did have some threaded stock, but I couldn't find any nuts that fit the threaded stock that I had. Glue it on there with a welder and see how they go fitting in the boot hole. So I'll do that again on this one. So I'll do that again on this one over here. And you should have a couple of straps with some thread on them. So this is the straps in the boot. Obviously they go on the bottom side. It's just sussing out how these threads are going to sit in there. Sit in there nice. Would you be quiet? I think cows are hungry. But that nut will sit in there nicely in the hole. Won't allow it to pull through, and it should locate it. Come on, that's enough. And that's with the stud poking up through the bottom. It's on the new strap. By the time to put a washer on that, stick that nut on there, it'll pull down there nicely. Just grab the eye poker, run over these, give them a quick wire wheel, give them a coat of rebuild black. And there they are, with a coat of rebuild black. Just got them hanging up in the shed to dry. Let them dry off. Give this fuel tank a flush out, give that a quick clean up, coat of cold galv, and call it good. Can go back in then. So I've finished cleaning up the fuel tank. It's all had a coat of paint now. It's pretty much all ready to go in. Move the car back around into the driveway, got it up on the ramps. It's all ready to slide the fuel tank under it. Just got to grab some fuel neck hose now and it'll be ready to go in. I've just been working on getting the fuel tank back in the car now. It's all back up there. The straps worked out beautifully. The nuts on the top there, as you can see, it's pulled up on the studs. And just about to reinstall the sender unit. With the sender unit, this little screw holds the wire seized. So I just popped this off and held the back side of the wiring connection with a pair of needle nose pliers and managed to get the screw undone. The sender unit's actually in pretty good condition. Give it a little bit of a clean up. It's now all ready to go back in. That's got the sender unit all reinstalled. So the old wiring is all pretty knackered on the end, corroded, so just chopped it off, fitted a new terminal, and wire's a little bit shorter, but it seems to reach. Should be happy days. What I've got to do now is get some filler neck hose up in there, up there. New bit of filler neck hose, reinstall that, and another piece for the breather pipe. Reinstall that, and should have a functioning fuel tank. Well, the time's come to say goodbye to this big beautiful beast. New owner's coming to collect it shortly. Unfortunately, it's a project I just don't have time for, and with the spinal fusion surgery coming up, I need a bit of cash for medical expenses, and I'm going to be in no physical shape to be continuing on with doing anything with it in the near future, so it's time to let it go. Bit sad. It's off to a good home. Hopefully we'll see what the new owner does with it. What a cool looking thing. There she goes.